Okay, so, bonjour. Yeah, you're giving these guys a really bad impression. They think Malta's really quiet. Really not the case. Bonjour. Yeah, everywhere I go when I speak around the world, I always start with a local word. This was the easiest so far. So just waiting for the slides. So most of you know who I am. David Darmanin. I'm the CEO and founder of Hotjar. Hotjar is more than just me, though. We have our excellent team down here. There's actually Tara from Vermont, who's our VP of Marketing. She came down to Malta to spend some time with us. There we go. And yeah, it's a real pleasure to be here. Huge thumbs up for seeing, as I said, I speak a lot around the world, and it's nice to see that this is happening in Malta, right? So big thumbs up for that. So today my plan was to challenge you. So I want to talk about the rise of the user, right? What do I mean by the rise of the user? I want to challenge the way you're thinking in terms of how you run your organization or what's next for you and how you're doing things. So it's going to be an interesting challenge. But before we do that, I want to understand a little bit the context of the room. How many of you are here representing a company that wants to grow or do things better? Okay. And how many of you are here because you want to start something new, startup? Okay. And how many of you are here neither of those two? I just want to see if everyone else is still alive. Okay, some of you have passed out, definitely. But yeah, okay, that gives a good idea. So that gives context. So this is relevant to both of you. This is questioning how you do things within your actual organization and also makes you think about how to do things next. So I've kind of broken it down into 2 points, right? Setting the expectations so you know what I'm going to be doing. So first off, I'm going to be talking about why your users, right, future users or current users, have now become your biggest weapon of mass growth. We talked about weapons of the future. So your users can also be a positive weapon. And then we're also going to be talking about the 4 drivers of what I believe are of what I coined as growth strategy and why they matter to you. But before I do that, some context, because it helps, right? Before I'm going to be telling you all this stuff, who is this guy up here talking? So I'm an entrepreneur, obviously, because of Hotjar, but I also worked for some time as a consultant inside the company, also working outside outside companies. I'm very passionate about anything which has to do with experience, you might have already told, but I'm specialized in growth and conversion rate optimization. But I've pretty much done hundreds, if not thousands, of tests. So won a lot, lost a lot, made shitloads of mistakes. So I'm hoping to share a little bit of the wins and mistakes with you today. More importantly, because of those mistakes, I was lucky enough to leverage that to see, we talked about, Herman mentioned the growth Hotjar is seeing, so to leverage that into Hotjar. And we're proud to be a Maltese company that is growing extremely fast. We're actually one of the fastest, well actually we are the fastest growing analytics company out there, so in the sphere of optimization, which is awesome, right? Maltese company showing up. And yeah, we grew to $3 million, euros in annual run rate in just 1 year. And now we have, that number is old, Eric can probably correct me, but around 130,000, I'm usually good at that, active sites using Hotjar. And we are a freemium model, right? So the money and the number of sites doesn't reflect each other. But Mike took us into a trip into the future today. I really enjoyed that. So I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to take you back into the past. This is 2005. This is a shot from Piazza di San Pietro when the new pope was chosen. Not our current pope, the one before that. And it's interesting, just process that image quickly, because I'm going to ask you to compare that to 2013, when another pope was chosen. And you can see the kind of side-by-side comparison, right? Something tremendous changed. And this is obviously, it's a no-brainer. All of you know we have smartphones, duh. But it's very easy to forget how quickly this happened. Just in 2005, all of us used to buy a book from a shop. Nowadays, Mike will be happy to know we buy them from Amazon. But more interestingly is now we just add, the contrast is not that good here. Now I just add it to my Kindle directly and just read it in bed. Nowadays, I also book my accommodation. So wherever I travel, Australia, Europe, US, I use Airbnb. I live in other people's homes, right? Interesting, we talked about timing. Why did Airbnb succeed? Not because people want people living in their homes, right? Because it was a time when the economy, people wanted extra cash. So Airbnb was the perfect model. Timing. Thanks for the contrast update. But what's interesting is that now on Airbnb, I have my own profile. And they're checking out me. So where was this? I was in Greece, and I forgot to clean up before I left. So now I have it on my bloody profile. So it's interesting that it's a two-way thing, right? It's no longer, is the Sheraton a good hotel? Now it's, is this a good host? And am I a good place to have in your place, right? So hopefully I need to bump up some new good ones to get rid of that. In fact, between these two photos, between two popes, we have seen a 10x increase in terms of social networking, social use. And that is just crazy, right? So people actively using devices, interacting. So just to put it into perspective and just really drill the point forward, some stats. Consumers are 71% more likely to make a purchase based on social media. Referrals, that's important. 90% of customers say buying decisions are influenced by online reviews. 15 million consumers go to social media channels before making purchase decisions. 49% of consumers use Facebook to search for restaurants. I did that just a week ago. 77% of consumers are more likely to buy a new product when learning about it from friends and family. 44% of automotive consumers conduct research on forums. I think a lot of you are identifying with some of these scenarios. 49% of US consumers say friends, family are top sources of brand awareness, right? Which brand to go for. 91% of B2B buyers are influenced by word of mouth when making their buying decisions. A lot of stats. But it all kind of is showing us that this evolution is happening. We've gone from the snake oil salesman to TV admin, equity characters, and now we're in consumer advocates, right? But we've actually gone beyond that. So what's next? What's happening? Here's what I call it. I like to call it the age of the connected user. And this visualization is my LinkedIn profile. So this is all my connections, and it's interesting to see that a substantial percentage of them are all in their own kind of interconnected state. So we're all interconnected to each other, which is super interesting, right? Again, if we think back to the previous pope, we were so much less connected. So it's safe to say that these connections are definitely influencing decisions, action. And that means that our users, our customers, the people we interact with can give us the thumbs down and say, you suck. They can say, you are awesome. Or, if you do things right, you can build a fan base. And this is kind of an example of what that fan base can do. So Hotjar leveraged the fan base. We actually have thousands of people who love the brand, love the way we do things and what we do. And this is usage statistics of Hotjar just blowing up. That big jump there is actually when we exited beta. So there was a lot of people saying, not sure if we want to trust these guys. Then they made the leap. And it's interesting because this connected state, when we say influence decisions, has influenced decisions to a point where it brought countries together to change their governments, right? So we know how powerful it is, not just in influencing purchasing decisions, but also influencing the way we feel about our actual countries. And that is some crazy stuff, right? Social networks, these connected states, have moved nations. So if you have doubts about whether it can influence your company currently or your future idea, I think it's a no-brainer. So the big question is not whether it's happening or not, or whether you are aware and convinced of this importance. Now, if you're not, there isn't much I can do. This is what you deserve. Again, contrast is a little bit off there, but you get the idea. So He is, right, the ultimate winning machine. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is how can we win in this connected era, in this connected age? So what have we learned from succeeding at this? The only way to win in the long term is to prioritize your users. They come first. And yet, we all fail at doing this. It's crazy. They are the future, your future. Now, it wasn't Chuck Norris that said this. That was actually, that was actually me. But you get the context, right? Winning has to do with users. The two go together. Why? Because that's where the whole connected network is. This clicker is not keeping up with me. So I wanted to look at 3 examples of companies that have prioritized their users, just to give context. So first one is Amazon. I was, over a decade ago, traveling to a lot of events, and I was lucky enough that I saw companies like Amazon, eBay, Dell present at conferences. And on that note, travel, go to other conferences. It's so important to learn by hearing other experts talk. But it was interesting that this was 2004, that already you can see the focus is completely on prioritizing their users, right? And it's a fine line, the difference between the two. But Amazon was talking prices, convenience, selection, right? They're not thinking about payment methods, speed of the site, SEO. They're not thinking tactical. They're thinking long-term, prioritizing their users. eBay, I was blown away when I was at the conference at the level of research they were putting into what they were doing. So they would visit their customers and their houses to see how they were using eBay, to understand their actual behavior, observe it, and then react to it with the way they changed their site. And then Booking.com, way before the mobile even came, they realized mobile is the future. They recruited a small team of elite developers to build their mobile experience. They protected them outside the organization so they would not be slowed down by others, and gave them powers to build stuff at speed. So again, thinking of the user, what experience do we need to create? Now obviously, we're not all Amazon, eBays and whatnot, right? But at Hotjar, we build a free tool that we distribute to thousands, to the masses. And what we've done is, for example, we've built this very simple methodology which allows us to understand our users better. So why are people coming to the site? Why are they leaving? And why have they actually converted or stayed with us? So that the more we understand what's important to them, what they're looking for, and what they were unhappy with, the more we can build a strategy similar to what these big companies have done. And it's critical to have some kind of methodology when it comes to your user, of how you process this and how you understand it. And a simple example is of each. If we look at drivers, if someone comes to your site, let's say you have an e-commerce site and you're selling a drill, what are you selling? Are you really selling a drill? Or are you selling a hole? Or are you selling a painting hanging on the wall? So it's this concept of understanding the core, the root cause, and then being able to adapt the experience, your site, your business to your user. Why? Because at the end of the day, you depend on them. They are the ones giving you their reaction. We're so obsessed about this at Hotjar is that we keep track of every conversation we have with our users, and it's a lot. I think every day we have something in the region of 500 conversations via chat. But we manually, qualitatively analyze them to see the most common queries, requests, so that we are better equipped to react, to change to our users. And again, we're not saying that the users are deciding what we do, right? But with that knowledge in mind, we can make better decisions. So we're kind of agreeing prioritizing your users makes sense. But it's also important to have a long-term plan. It's what I like to call a North Star. You have to have a North Star. Typically, when I speak at events, I'm speaking to digital marketers, to growth hackers, consultants, and they're all up, like thinking about how do we grow now? How do we become better? And that can be very tactical. It can be, those guys are doing that, let's do this. These guys are doing this, let's copy them. But you need to have your North Star. With Hotjar, a lot of our success came from having this North Star. From the very beginning, we knew where we wanted to go, what we want to achieve, and we're sticking to that. So the big word we're using here is strategy, right? But strategy is used in so many big contexts. But let's simplify a little bit. Strategy is North Star. So if you don't have a North Star, you don't have strategy. So in essence, having a North Star is all about having this plan of action designed, this long-term objective. So the opposite of this is, as I said, sites where you can see which test won. Don't know if you've heard about this. But it's basically where you can see what other wins other companies have had. And this is dangerous. So be careful not to base yourself purely on what other wins other people are having, or just looking at what all other startups are doing. Don't be another startup. Don't be another business. You need to be different. And this was the core, the key to our success. But I also mentioned 2 failures we had before. In our case, and that's how we learned from this, these 2 failures were mainly due to us just trying to be other businesses. So thinking, how can we just create another business which can go and make money in this industry? But we weren't thinking different. We didn't have a purpose. So essentially, what I'm challenging to do is to start to think of growth, now whether it is starting a new business or growing your current business, as a journey, right? Now the thing is, we all like to think we're in this kick-ass jet making maneuvers, and as we determine where the organization is going, the startup, we're making these awesome decisions, maneuvers. But the reality is that it's much more different than that. You're on this big-ass ship, and if you make one bad decision, you're probably screwed. You're going to hit Sicily or something. So this is the reality. So if that is the reality, what is this growth strategy we're talking about? So if you're leaving point A, if you have a North Star, you know you're aiming for Australia. Big-ass continent, right? So probably you're going to get there. The problem is, the red line doesn't show here that much, but it's pretty much going all over the place. Now, a lot of startups, a lot of companies don't have a strategy, don't have a long-term purpose and vision. So they're relying on quick wins, right? The wing it approach. And that's where you're going to end up all over the place and probably not going to make it at the end. Probably going to run out of fuel or head into a storm. So the power of growth, the power of, in an agile, iterative way, saying, what can we improve now? How can we improve iteratively towards our vision, is that you can make small decisions on a daily, weekly, monthly basis which align that angle where you're going. And hopefully what you end up with is iterative growth. So you have a long-term North Star, and as you go along, you're making decisions. Should we change the site in this way? Well, does it help with our North Star? No. Drop it. Align, realign. So it's really important that you have this. It's very easy to underestimate the importance of having this. So what do we want to achieve? So in essence, with this journey, we want to have conversion. Now, what is conversion? Now, a lot of people talk about conversion rate optimization, growth. How many are people converting from the site? I like to think old school conversion. Think of your company as a religion. You're converting people to your religion. Sounds a little bit hardcore. But I think that's a great mindset to have. Because that forces you to think, if I have a religion, what is my purpose? Who am I? What am I doing? Why will people want to join my movement? And that becomes a very powerful way of thinking. Monetization, right? Definitely you need to have monetization. It's part of the growth process. But we'll look later at how are we going to make the lolly, right? What's the relationship there? Usage. This is so important. Again, so many startups, so many businesses have users, but they fail to understand that if people are not using your product, if you have an e-commerce site, they're not coming back. If there is not deep, consistent, repetitive usage, then you're pretty much screwed. So usage is key. And then finally, word of mouth. Why? Because we are in a connected era. So if we're in a connected era, if you don't have word of mouth, you're simply not making the most out of this connected network that's already there. So to summarize, what we're saying is in an ideal world, we have conversion, we have monetization, usage, and word of mouth. If you can nail all those four, you are going to succeed. But the big problem is you can't sit down today at the table and say, okay, how do we get conversion? How do we get usage? So instead, I've looked at how have we succeeded and failed, and what were the four things that we aimed for to get these four results. And here's what we found. So, first is demand. You need to be different. Okay, Amazon don't say why they're different, but how many Amazons are there? If you are creating a new business, why are you different? What is your position? Why are you unique? Why should I buy from you? And the more unique you are, the more different you are, the more demand you can build. The more you are like anyone else, no one's going to want you. Be different, generate demand. Monetization, think value. Stop thinking, how can I make $1 million? And instead think, how can I create 1 million happy customers? Think value. How can I create value? The monetization will come. Experience. How are we creating a kick-ass experience? The answer to Herman's question, which I think is, what should we be thinking about? I think the biggest potential for disruption is that markets exist, technologies exist, but most experiences suck. So if you create an awesome experience, you can actually disrupt the market very quickly. Ultimate example, Uber. Okay, it's not just the experience, the operations supported the experience, but the whole company was built around this amazing experience. Word of mouth. At Hotjar, we call it wow. It's one of our cultural values. How do we create wow? Even if it means I walk outside on a stage riding an elephant. Get the wow factor. Because when you have wow, then you're going to later have, well, actually think about it. If I came out here on an elephant, probably tomorrow you're going to meet your friend and you're going to say, David, the guy from Hotjar, came out on a fucking elephant. So that is word of mouth. You're generating word of mouth. So think wow. How are you going to wow your users, right? They want to be wowed. We all want to be wowed. And it doesn't take much, right? It doesn't necessarily need to be an elephant. If I call Melita today and they reply in 30 seconds, fucking wow. Yeah, that worked. So you see my point? Disruption in the experience. If Melita found a way to reply to our phone calls in 30 seconds, they've created wow. They're probably going to win the fucking market. And yet Melita haven't yet... Is anyone from Melita here? Oh, good. Well, actually would have been to their benefit. So yeah, I'm going to jump a little bit more into detail in each one, just to visualize it, right? I really want to get the message home. So, different, right? Apple, ultimate example. I'm not saying you should be Apple. But if there's anyone who understands being different, generating demand, this is the model. You don't need to go all the way, like Melita. You can do small things, right? But be different. If I visit your site, or if I ask you what is your business, and in 10 seconds your elevator pitch can't tell me why you're different, you've lost. We've talked about thousands of startups constantly coming on the scene. You need to be drastically different. That's why our name is Hotjar. That's why we've taken multiple companies and connected them into one massive value and then went rock bottom price. So we've disrupted with value innovation. So you need to think, how are you different? But with Hotjar, we've taken it to the next level, right? We've created this sense of purpose. We are democratizing the market. We are giving access to students. We're giving access to startups with no money. So all of a sudden, we've created a movement. Other examples are Avis. They couldn't beat Hertz. So we said, we try harder. We're the ultimate number 2. Different, right? Robinhood, disrupting stock buying and the Hotjar ideas I talked about. And an ultimate tool to measure demand is to use this really cool Google tool called Google Trends. You can see what people are searching for. And this is a perfect example that red line is Hotjar over a period of 1 year, starting from rock bottom. This is the existing market, just so it's clear. One of these guys is an Israeli company with $40 million in investment, right? And we're bootstrapped. And you see the power of generating demand. Value. I chose this image, right? If I offer you a glass of water today, you won't be impressed. If you've been walking a week in the desert without water, you're going to be blown away. So context. Understand the context and what is value. Really understand value. So perfect examples, right? On a flight, getting offered the ability to have flexibility in your booking. I always used to think, who's the retard that books like a higher priced flight with flexibility? Wait till you have kids. Then you understand the whole point of that. So value, to me there's value. If shit happens, someone gets sick, problems, I can change the flight. So by understanding value, you can then monetize better. Other examples are Amazon with their gift wrapping, or 99 Designs, the ability to say, choose the best, get designs only from the best designers instantly. After using them a few times, I realized that was value. We paid much more for that. So you need to understand, don't assume you know. And the best way to understand is to use surveys. Most clients I worked with, and I've worked with some big clients, like Audible, actually acquired by Amazon, BigCommerce, Condé Nast. Yet these sophisticated companies would say, well, they're not going to answer a survey. Who's going to answer a survey? Of course not, because you are a manager. You are an entrepreneur. You do not answer surveys. But your users, they do. So do surveys because you're going to learn. And go with a lot of questions. Investigate, discover. Experience. The ultimate experience, right? The thing that comes to mind, at least when I was building this, was the Minority Report. Everyone's like, ooh, I want to use that, right? So build an experience worthy of Minority Report. Some companies have done it really well. We talked about Uber. It's nearly addictive the way you kind of get a taxi, right? We don't have it in Malta, but when I was traveling, it was like, ooh, I love this. You just literally want to go out and do it because it's fun. Airbnb, they created this whole concept with neighborhoods so you can discover, understand. They've made it interesting. They've made it an interesting experience. And Booking.com, they called me a genius. How can I not go back to Booking.com and book again? They have this context of points. And then if I'm a genius, I'm actually a booking genius, seriously. So if I'm a genius, I get discounts based on my activity. So it's an awesome experience. And a great way to measure experience is to look at addiction. Addiction, not the bad stuff, the good stuff. So for example, this is a tool which is called Mixpanel. It shows us at Hotjar how likely are people coming back, returning and using the tool over time. So we are obsessed about addiction now. How do we build an experience where people say, I want to use this every day, right? Which is extreme, but thinking in that way is going to generate experience. And experience gives us usage. Usage builds this wall in a market which is so disruptive, right? And then finally, wow, right? The most important thing, more than anything else. How do we delight? Because if we are delighting, then we are fueling this connected network that exists. And trust me, it does work. You know when you've hit the right button. Early on in Hotjar, we realized that the biggest weakness of our competitors was not technology, was not price, it was their support. It was shit. Literally, people would contact them, it would take a week to reply. So we're like, okay, let's leverage the best technology we can find, which was Intercom, really cool tool, which is like in-app chat, and someone can then reply to you later on via email, come back into the app, you see the conversation continuing. It was expensive, but we said we need to invest. And then we started building out a support team, and then I was working like pretty much full-time support. So we said, we're going to aim to reply to every conversation within pretty much the hour. And that just blew our users away. They were going to Twitter saying, Hotjar is awesome, Hotjar is cool. Then we took it upon ourselves that any request that was asked from us that we execute, we would follow up with a personal conversation. Hey, Brian, thanks for that suggestion. We actually just implemented it. We'd love your feedback before we announce it. Wow! We'd literally have these messages. Wow! We created a wow channel in HipChat where we just post these messages just to, again, make them more visible. So wow is important. So, examples, Stripe. They did Atlas. So if you work with Stripe, They will actually set up a company for you in the US if you're not in the US, just so that you can process with Stripe and make your life easier. Wow. ChartMogul, which is a MRR, like SaaS analytics company, when we joined, they sent us like a t-shirt, metrics, cheat sheets. It was like, whoa. And again, Intercom, this experience I talked about, whoa. So create these wow moments, right? Just like Melita. And a great way to measure wow is to use what's called NPS, Net Promoter Score. Very simple question. How likely are you to recommend us to a friend or a colleague? And you score from 1 to 10. Read about NPS scores, do research, very powerful stuff. We do this every quarter to see how we're doing. So, to summarize, I'm not going to go into these again in detail. The 4 levers of growth strategy. Nail these 4, and you are building up yourself as a company that's going to win in this connected era. These are the 4 keys that we found are critical. I'll be sharing the slides with you guys later as well, so you don't need to. So, essentially, these are the 6 key takeaways from today. We are now in a connected user era. We must adapt. Actually, I wrote before, we must adapt or die. But I was like, that's hardcore. But someone asked about it, so that would have been even better. Or others will, right? So we'll be edged out. Become a true champion for your users internally, right? Even if you think the organization will not, then you take the spear in your hands and be the one to champion it. Work with your team to create a clear purpose and vision. What is your North Star, right? Build an action plan around these 4 levers of growth strategy. Like, how are you going to achieve all 4? Listen to your users and become a user customer yourself. This is a powerful one. So, are you the user yourself? Are you truly the customer? Because that's the only way you can start thinking in this way. And finally, I like to say, give a shit. Because once you've discovered what your users want, what they like, what are their problems, why are they coming, you need to act on it, right? So many of us don't. I was consulting this e-commerce company. They're selling bikes. And obviously, because I don't know the business, I don't know the site that well, we deployed Hotjar. We asked some questions like, what's missing? How can we improve the site? And across the board, all of them were saying, weight of the bike. I was like, guys, do you not have the weight of the bike on the site? They're like, no, I don't have that yet. It's like, give a shit. Just go weigh the bikes and get the fucking weight on the bike, on the site. And 1 year later, they still don't have the weight of the bikes on the site. So it's useless to know. Execution is key. Once you have the North Star, you know what your users are saying, execute like crazy against that. And yeah, follow me on Twitter. I'll be sharing these slides and all my crazy rambles as well. Thank you very much.